We are talking about the movie Slumber, which is also known as Nightmare. This one is directed and co-written by Jonathan Hopkins and stars Maggie Q. And this is a sleep paralysis movie. And we've seen a few of those in recent years. I don't know why there has to have been this big thing within the last few years of having these movies based on this subject. But here's another one. So this focuses on Maggie Q's character, who is a doctor involved in kind of sleep research. Now, she lost her brother we see in a prologue at the beginning of the movie, who seems to have been suffering from some kind of sleepwalking nightmares. And in her adult life, she is now a kind of scientist, a doctor, studying the effects of sleep problems. And she is visited by a family who seem to be on the brink of kind of having a nervous breakdown because their young son is ultimately afraid to go to sleep because he feels like he's seeing some kind of dark presence there pressing down on him, and all of the family are affected, doing weird things when they are asleep, getting up and kind of sleepwalking and potentially being quite dangerous. And it's up to Maggie Q's character and a few other kind of peripheral characters to see if they can stop the rot, so to speak. So what do we think about Slumber? So the positives first for me, I think Maggie Q is quite well cast as a kind of a medical professional. She just kind of looks like that she kind of suits that role quite well, and she plays it pretty well as well, giving kind of equal parts very much a kind of a scientific view, but she has this kind of the empathy towards the sort of the characters as well, which kind of makes her have that kind of personal connection, and she's obviously kind of thinking about her brother while she's kind of looking at this little boy problem. She plays it quite well, I've got to say. So that I kind of quite liked. I thought when we actually see the hag, which is is commonly known as the old hag, in these kind of the myth of the sleep paralysis, basically, it looks pretty scary, and I kind of quite like those kind of sequences. And there are some neat effects here when we see the kind of boy being kind of like messed around with by this kind of like this entity, this kind of supernatural force, and it's presented as such a kind of a primal force of nature, really, that it can't really be stopped. It really does feel like the deck is stacked against our kind of protagonists, really, and how they're going to overcome it. With some poor writing, that's how they're going to overcome it. So let's move on to some of the negatives here. Yes, poor writing, with a convenient kind of a deus ex machina, I guess you would say, in regards to a person who happens to be a janitor in this facility who has a relative which is, has faced this evil before. I thought that was very, very trite. And I've got to say, one thing that really bugged me is the unprofessional way that these scientists and doctors are kind of treated. And I just can't believe that, even though I quite like Maggie Q's portrayal of a medical professional, I do not feel she is written to be a professional person, if that makes sense. So, for example, they're meant to be kind of like watching this kind of family, and then one guy goes out to get coffee and says, "Do you want anything?" And then he disappears off, and then 2 seconds later, Maggie Q goes out to get coffee as well, leaving all the screens, unoccupied and unkind of watched, and then shit goes wrong, obviously. And I think literally that could have been written any other way, and it would have seemed more professional, or done by professional people, basically. And there's a few other examples of just things that you just think that wouldn't happen. Someone just wouldn't do that, and people seem to be wandering around doing whatever they like. So it really bothered me, some of the writing in this movie, to be honest with you. At the end of the day as well, I feel it's not a particularly original film. So it pretty much goes in the way that you can expect, and there's certain kind of tropes that this movie kind of falls in that you won't be having any surprises about what's happening. I feel it's a serviceable horror film with some kind of quite good effects. Maggie Q is a likeable read, even though I'm not 100% sure I kind of like the writing in regards to kind of some of the choices that her characters were making. I mean, it's a few more than the coffee thing. I just don't want to go into spoilers. But nonetheless, it's the effects wise, it's quite well made, and it's shot well as well, which does make it give it kind of a slick professional feel to it in regards to, so you feel like you're watching a kind of fairly well produced film. I really didn't like some of the peripheral characters, to be honest with you. They seem very kind of unrealistic, not necessarily badly acted, but poorly written. Overall though, it's watchable, but I feel there are better movies like this. There's one called Dead Awake, which I feel is a superior film, and I've got to say I think lower budget than this one, but nonetheless I feel it did a better job of giving you a really scary kind of sleep paralysis movie. And there's been some more as well. So overall, it's okay for a kind of a paranormal kind of supernatural film, but I don't feel it's really anything to write home about. So I'll give this movie a 5 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.